While the inverted pyramid is still the most widely used method in news writing, we can't write every story the same way. Some stories demand more color, more dialogue, more drama and suspense. This week, we look at alternatives to the inverted pyramid in Chapter 9 of our text. Our goals this week are how to construct a chronology, the news narrative, the focus structure, and different formats we can use for what we call service journalism. Most of us read novels, even if we don't read the newspaper every day. We want to write some of our stories as if they were novels. That's because novels engage us. They grab hold of our minds and our emotions, almost forcing us to read through until the end. We want to write our nonfiction stories the same way, informing and entertaining our readers. The news doesn't all have to be dull, does it? First, let's review our tools from Chapter 8, writing in scenes, writing dialogue, using foreshadowing, and using anecdotes. As readers, we know these techniques of narration, even if we don't realize it. Think about the scenes as you write. Recall some of your favorite novels or even movies. Usually they move around from scene to scene or place to place. Place is a really important part of your writing. Bring your readers into each scene by writing with vivid details. Let the people in your story talk to each other rather than just giving a quote to the reporter and the readers. Foreshadowing is just a fancy way of saying that we should drop some clues along the way. It's a trick most novelists use, ending a chapter on some cliffhanger and then switching to a new scene. It forces us to keep reading to find out what's going to happen. And listen for little anecdotes as you interview people. Anecdotes are those little stories within a story. For example, say you're doing a story on the Volunteer of the Year. You might open it with an anecdote about the first time the guy helped someone and how he felt afterward. It may tell us a lot about him and how he earned this award. One of the most reliable tools we have in journalism is the chronology. Read Brian Gruely's story about September 11th, which you'll find elsewhere in this folder. How could you write something like that on deadline? Well, not to be too simplistic, but first one plane crashed, and then the second, and, well, you get the idea. You'll see chronology a lot once you start looking for it. One important note, you don't always have to start at the beginning. Maybe there's a dramatic moment where you'd rather begin the story. Let's take Tiger Woods, for example. You might start with his apology and then circle back to the beginning to pick up the chronology. It all started with a car crash on Thanksgiving weekend and a frantic call to 911 from the wife of Tiger Woods. You'll find some samples of this kind of story structure on pages 190 and 191 of our text. You'll read about nut graphs in the book too. That's what we call a theme paragraph that's placed a little below the lead. It summarizes the key facts of the story and foreshadows what lies ahead for the reader. Let's say you started with an anecdote or some dramatic moment. At some point, you've got to put that moment into the context of the overall story. That's what the nut graph does for your readers. You should always look out for the to be sure paragraph too. To be sure concedes that there's another side to the story. As an objective reporter, you need to include at least a paragraph about other views on the topic. Unless you don't. Some stories are simply so one-sided that there is no other side. How do we end our narratives? With a strong ending. A pretty bow on the present, if you will. Think about those Olympic gymnasts we watch on TV and how they always try to stick their dismounts. You need to nail your landing too. One way is a tieback, something that ties back to your lead. Another is to save a great quote for your ending. Chapter 9 also talks about news narratives. I think of these as those long, fascinating stories we sometimes read in the Sunday paper, although you can find them anywhere and any time. A news narrative combines the inverted pyramid and chronology. For example, let's say a story breaks during the week. You write a short first-day story using the inverted pyramid, but it's really interesting and you keep digging for more details. When you're done digging, you write the long news narrative using chronology and other tools, the story that takes readers beneath the surface. I'd like to end this presentation by talking about the focus structure story because it's my personal favorite. One of my writing heroes was a reporter named Charles Kuralt, who said that when you're doing a story about China, tell it through one Chinese person. The point is, we can use one person's experience to tell a story that affects a lot of people. It could be a story about a blizzard, an illness, getting laid off, or practically any topic. We begin the story by focusing on one person's experience, then we transition to reporting on the larger group and the big issue, whatever it is. To make it really effective, we end the story by going back to our original person for a last word, if you will.